It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey, everybody. I am Cathey Armillas.
And I am Marc Williams. Welcome to the wrap-up episode of season 9 of It's About to Go Down.
Yeah.
Cathey, this is so awesome. This is so awesome. I cannot still believe that all it took was a phone call during the pandemic and you with all your genius saying, I got an idea.
No, you with all your genius of like, I don't care what the idea is, I'm in.
And now here we are. And what do we say? Counting Mark Brown, actually, 91 people that we've had awesome idea conversations with. And season 10 is on its way. But we got to talk about season 9 first.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. All the way from Marcus and Josh, Christina and Darren, Dr. LaJoy, Penny, Chris, Tracy, Sam, Rebecca, and
Mr. John. Yeah.
Well, Cathey, let's kick it off. Let's kick off this wrap up. We don't always have the opportunity to speak to more than one person, but this was like 4 of us just jamming in this session, this idea conversation. Marcus Hollinger and Josh Roth from Stoked talking about idea science. I love this line. The innovation practice needs innovation.
I know, I loved that.
Right.
So
but
good.
It not only needs innovation, it needs music, it needs neuroscience. Oh, these two are awesome.
Oh my God, amazing. I love how they both took their love. So Josh lives in Nashville. Marcus lives in Atlanta. They both have a huge love for music. And their love for music is so blended and diverse. And that was where they started with their concept of idea science, which is where they would take the things that we could learn from great musicians who have created great, had great careers, created great music. And I love that. Like that was like the basis. And so it really interesting, cool. And then for them, that thing that connects them. I love that. And to me, that was awesome.
We're talking about connection, and then we're talking about science, and the only science I can think of is the chemistry. Not only the chemistry between the two of them, the 4 of us, but the chemistry, again, of music and neuroscience and idea generation. And I got to tell you, that practice that they took us through in those questions, magic. As our friend Chris Smith will say, gold, right?
Gold. And we're getting to him.
Yeah. So much gold that I have met up with a number of people to brainstorm and mastermind about things. And I have referenced this conversation. That's how genius it was.
Well, it didn't even stop there, because on the show episode itself, they walked us, they were like, hey, are you all, and just for anybody watching the behind the scenes, they told us that they were going to ask us a question, but we didn't know what we were going through. So they were just like, is it okay if we do an exercise on the show? And we were like, yeah. So when we kind of brainstormed about Speaker Skills Academy right there in the room, you could see how they took their really cool idea science and applied it to us. It was awesome right there in the spot. And for all y'all, it didn't end there. They have this thing called the 9x9 challenge. And what they want you to do every day is just ask yourself a creative question. Like there might be a problem that you need to solve, and then ask it in a question form, and then come up with 9 ideas. Doesn't matter how good or bad they are. Just have the practice of doing 9 every day. Loved it. So
Yeah.
good.
These guys are genius. And the
Yeah.
fact that they put music all into it, like you said, that's like a win-win. And I loved having Marcus and Josh, who, have stopped by Speaker Skills Academy. And like you said, have not only just stopped by, just like they did not just stop by, it's about to go down, but they dropped nuggets and thought bombs. I don't know where I just came up with that word.
I love that. Bombs.
Right? They dropped some thought bombs on us, and we're still sizzling over it. That was a cool conversation. That was a
Super
cool
cool.
conversation. Yeah.
I
Just
love it.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Since you have spoken with them, presented with them, like what's new or coming down the pipe for them? Do you know?
Oh my gosh. Well, they had just kicked off that idea science thing. And then when they were here in Portland, we went and presented it at Nike to a global sports marketing group at Nike, and it was fire. So we just took the same concept, and yeah, exactly. It was fire, y'all. We went in there and did the same concept. And then we had people at Nike, writing all these ideas. And the senior director that brought us in, she wanted to make sure she captured every single one of these ideas, all the stickies, because they were great. So they have continued to do that. They're doing this for other companies, other organizations, and they're on the circuit, Mark. They're out there like on podcasts. So you can catch Josh and Marcus everywhere, and at Speaker Skills Academy, because they are part of our community as well. But number 1 was awesome. That was a great kickoff. I freaking loved episode number 2, Christina Alexander, former WNBA player, amazing coach. What she talked about, Mark, it really blew my mind, especially in the space that she came from, because she talked about transitions. And sometimes you would just think, oh, is transitions even like a complete topic, or is it kind of a subset? But man, did she take something like that and turn it into, it was just so well thought out. And just thinking about her transitioning from being an actual player in the WNBA to being a coach. I loved it. I freaking loved it.
I love that she talked about continuous transitions, because I think that sometimes in life we do think about, whether it be from age this to age that, or from job this to job that. But there are so many different ways that we transition that after we had that conversation, I'm even thinking on a personal level with, like, at home with family. What are the micro moments that are then really transitions?
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. I love that too, Mark, because what you're basically saying is sometimes you don't know when you're in that transition, right? You're in a moment and you don't know. And she said that thing too, like, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to make the transition? Look at professional athletes. How many times is somebody on the top of their game and people are like, are you crazy to stop? But they might be transitioning into a new phase of their life. They might be transitioning to a coach role. They might be transitioning. And so sometimes there's a big sacrifice. And so I loved that as a question.
Well, I'll piggyback off of that and say, what I also love about that question is that transitions sometimes can have a very uncomfortable connotation, right? Because change is often uncomfortable. But when she asked, what are you willing to sacrifice for it? The implication there is that transitions are actually okay, right? And sometimes you got to give up a little bit to be prepared and ready for that transition. And listen, I've known Christina for quite some time. I met her in Brooklyn way before Portland took ownership of her and became her new home. So it's funny because we even represent the two sides of her transition, of many transition.
many of transitions. Yeah, no kidding. That's true. I didn't really think about that. She met her before she moved to
Brooklyn had her first. Get that. Brooklyn had her first.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Portland has her. I think it's a temporary spot. Like, I don't think Portland has her. So, yeah. But she's awesome.
She is awesome. She is awesome. We also had Darren Fleming. And I appreciate that Darren said, make the unconscious conscious. And on the surface, you might not quite get that. But when he spoke about how we've got everything we need, right? Sometimes we're in search of this or improving on that, or sometimes we feel that we're wrong about this or about that. But everything you got is all you need
it's like right in here.
Successful, right? I find that to be such an empowering thought. And there was this thing, and you brought it up too. Are you at choice right now? We talked a lot about choice. I'm just curious, like, what resonated with you so much about that question?
Well, we were having the conversation about concepts, and we have that conversation a lot. And if you think I'm the queen of concepts, Darren Fleming, my friend, because I've known him for over a decade. He is somebody that just constantly thinks about concepts. And so I love that he flipped it for his audience. Instead of telling them, because I forgot how he worded it before the question, but he said, why don't you take your concept and flip it into a question so it lands better? And I loved that, right? And so asking them, are you at choice right now? Instead of telling them that they are at choice. And look at the difference between that. I could tell you, Mark, you're at choice right now, which is kind of ironic because I'm telling you. Or I could ask, are you at choice right now? And so he just was showing the difference. I think he was just kind of showing how deep this concept could be.
I want to sit on that for a second, because so much of what we experience when we're having these conversations, part of it is about the idea that we're talking about. And the other part is around how do you shape and frame an idea. And what you just said right there. So many of us have ideas, right? And I feel like even by definition, an idea sounds like, I got the statement, I got the answer, but to say that I'm going to present I feel like I'm playing Jeopardy here. I'm going to present my answer as a question.
Yeah, I love it. Marc Williams, he's now trying out for the next position of Jeopardy host, which I think you'd be great at, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. I just hope that other people think about that as they're formulating an idea, because that's a great pickup.
Yeah, it's so good. And, he just released that book, which now it's probably a couple months old, but Mindset Mastery. And, this is Darren's, I don't know, he's written several books. I don't know what number it is. But again, Darren's a big thinker. And so I loved when he said at the beginning, when we first opened, he said, everything that you've ever read and whatever, it's probably bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit out there. I mean, maybe even his own stuff, right? He was just kind of like, whatever, everything you need is inside of you, everything you need to succeed. And so I love that. And funny enough, I just have to make a call out to our shirts, because it's the same, but different concept. Is we teach people in speaking that they bring the conscious down to the unconscious, bringing it down there so that you're able to access it later. So it's same, but different. We kind of teach people drop stuff from the conscious to the unconscious. So when you do speak, you can unthink.
Yes. Nice. Nice.
Yeah, well, his was awesome, and you should check it out on his website. He has, because I think it was like Mastery Mindset Online or something like that.
Mhm.
But he has a five-day mindset challenge, so that's pretty cool. And that was awesome. But our next one, episode number 4, was Laura LaJoy. What I know, right? And what a perfect name. So okay, so she talks about Joy. She has the Dr. Joy show. Her name means in French, the joy. The joy. I mean, this was incredible, Mark. I loved, what did she call them? The 12 common threads of joyful people. One for each hour on the clock. Yep.
Oh, tick tock, tick tock. I love that. I love the idea that we should be thinking on an hourly basis
Yeah.
the things that
Yes.
we can do to bring us joy.
Mm. You know what? I love that too, because it turns it into like, which is what she was going for, right? A
Mm.
practice. People that are usually joyful and happy have to practice it. This is not something that, you have to put it into practice. You can't just say, "Oh, I feel happy inside. I feel joyful inside, but my outside face is horrible."
Well, that takes me back to my English teacher days, right? Let me throw this one out at you. Let me throw this one out at you, right? So you either have an abstract noun or a concrete noun.
Mm.
Idea is an abstract noun.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Joy is an abstract noun.
Mm.
The 12 stops on the clock representing 12 concrete things you can do
Oh,
throughout your day to experience that joy. Because sometimes we don't get the abstract until you break it down to something tangible and practical. That's what she did. That's what I learned and took away.
oh, Mr. English teacher himself, Marc Williams. Oh my God, I love that, Mark. Thank you for also teaching us about abstract nouns and concrete nouns. I love that. But you're right. So there were two, I don't know what your favorites were, but there were two that I really liked. Part of her 12 common threads, because some of them were, kindness and, like some of them were things you would expect. But then there was two that I really loved. One of them was celebration and the other one was acceptance. And so, like, what can you celebrate? Can you celebrate something for yourself? Can you
Mm,
celebrate something for other people? And so that's a good practice. That's a concrete
yeah.
example, right? And same with the acceptance. Can you just accept something? Yeah.
Mm. Was play one of them? I feel like
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Yep. I know.
because
Yeah.
we don't do it enough.
Yeah. I know.
We
That's
don't
true.
do it enough. We don't fit. I forget 24 hours. I don't even know if we fit play into like a whole week.
Yeah. 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 Well, your good friend Cathey Armillas does.
Oh
I make
yeah, most definitely.
it. I mean, yeah, so much so that I'm like, okay, I got to be serious and get stuff done. Like, there's a lot of play in my life, but to that point, Mark, because I've this point in my life, because I had kids really young, and I didn't have time for it when I was raising young kids, and I was
Mm.
young. I have definitely prioritized that as a part of my life, and you can see the outcome of that.
Well, listen, we see that every time we have the conversations.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, let's play a game. You're the game master and the game changer all in one.
Oh, I appreciate that. I like playing games. So
You're
that
welcome.
was super fun. She's
Yes,
awesome.
yes, yes. Now, for that next guest that we had, we went all the way
Yes,
overseas.
we did.
Which is funny because we both met Penny Wood here in the United States.
Hmm. We did.
And when I met her in the United States, yes, I heard I'm going to say I heard the accent. She's probably like, when she spoke to me, she heard my accent.
Yeah.
But I
100%.
didn't know that she lived in England. Um, It's been so awesome talking to her. And as coaches ourselves, and I know you don't always like that word coach. I know you don't like it. But as coaches ourselves, right? She expressed so much love as a coach and what it gives her the opportunity to do. I love when she said, she talked about pause and pivot and pushing forward, right? The 3 Ps of success. And she talked about helping leaders to take bold action. And one of the things, in addition to the idea that really stood out to me, was this whole approach of using examples of people who have implemented your idea. And I just love that, as whether we're speakers or any kind of walk of life, some of your best evidence you could ever use is people who have put your idea into practice.
Absolutely.
I love that she talked about that.
I do too. She's a very conscientious coach. Sorry, that was a lot of C's. I remember her telling us at one point that she even has to take the pause herself as a coach. And I love that, because I know you and I go through that when we're working with people. Sometimes you feel like you know where the answer is for them, but you have to pause and let them get there, or you have to pause and not insert yourself. Like, it won't be as powerful if the person she's coaching can't get there themselves or find the way themselves. And so I love that she even used it on herself. She's not like, oh, I have these things and I teach them to my clients, because we do the same thing. We're like, hey, we teach the idea map on speaking. Guess what we do when we have to speak? We have to go back to that drawing board and use the same tools. And so I loved that from her. It's a very high level thinker.
Do you remember when she told the story about being in a coaching session and she asked her client a question? And I don't remember how long it was. I felt like she said 17 minutes. I don't remember. It was like
a long
an
time.
insane amount of time.
It's like I would have been checking the, like, this.
Are you frozen?
Yeah.
But that's, wow.
She let them sit in silence.
Yeah. I got to ask you something else, though, because this came up during the conversation. Why do people need ideas? Why do we need ideas?
It's such a simple but yet great question, because the knee jerk is we need to find creative ways to do things, right? But then if we go back to Darren's thing, we have the answers within ourselves. If we go back to Dr. Joy or Laura's, we also can play around. We have an opportunity to be really creative and play around with certain things. I think ideas make the world a better place for me, I think, right? But the execution of them.
I was going to tie in what you said and said, we need ideas to bring out the answers, the creativity, the imagination that's already living within.
Yeah.
It's like the whole world's got answers. Sometimes we leave them here.
Yeah.
We're afraid to put them out, right? Or something doesn't work. And so we're like, I don't know if that idea is good enough. Ideas solve the world.
Totally. But, just to take a left turn for a second here, some of the things that might be inside of you might be 3 different things that might be inside of you, that you're the first person to put those things together. And that kind of makes a new angle on an idea. And that's and the world needs that, because we can't just always I was thinking about it the other day. I was talking to one of the kids and I told them, I go, because one of the kids said, oh, is Buick still making cars? And I go, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. And then I had this thought of like, anybody who's a car manufacturer, even if they've won like car of the year and they made it to the top, they can never stop. They have to innovate. They constantly have to make it better because everybody else is doing that. So, if you think about it, they're constantly having to come up with new technology, new thing. I mean, and that's how the technology space works too. And there's a lot of industries like that. A lot of these ideas probably are old but new. They probably took things, probably did some of the same stuff. So anyway, it's just going down a creativity route for a second. But what Penny posed in that, in her show was really good. And I think some of the pausing and the pivoting speak to what you're asking.
Yeah.
You take a pause, you say, is this right for me? Will it go for the goal? Do I need to pivot? And then what do I need to push forward? So freaking good. Amazing.
Freaking good.
Freaking good. I love it.
Freaking good.
Freaking good. So then it brings us to episode number 6 with our good friend and one of the founding members of our beloved Speaker Skills Academy, Chris Smith.
Gold.
Gold. This is what he's known by. Every time somebody says something he loves, he goes, that's gold. And it's like his catchphrase. And it has so much love and warmth behind it. Now, before I tell you what Chris talked about, I have to tell you that Chris comes from a multi-ethnic background. He's Native American, he's Mexican American, and he's Pacific Islander. And he many times, as you know, in our community talks about how he has to go within different communities. And so when you see Chris on our show and he has a unicorn hat on his head, know that it's because he has this idea of fuckery and flair. Fuckery and flair.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know, right? Fuckery and flair, fuckery and flair. Too many F's, right? All the F words. And you might see him and discount this as he's a silly guy. That's what I worry sometimes. Somebody who doesn't know Chris Smith could see him and go, oh, he's just silly. That's a silly. Why is he wearing a unicorn pink thing and it, on his head? Chris has so many beautiful, authentic thoughts. He gives so much to his communities. His fuckery and flair is about, he even talked about it on the show. The fuckery time is your downtime. It's a time, he even teaches it to young folks. He says, hey, you have fuckery time. You have time where you can do whatever you want. But when you need to step up, you step up and you do the things you need to do. And here's some, and so he's always like mentoring people. And then, he's just talking about living life with flair. He actually has a really heartfelt reason why he wears, the hat, and he wears it a lot. And I think he touched on the story a little bit on our show. I won't rehash it again, but there's a really heartfelt reason that he wears it. And it's part of his flair. It's part of his story. It's part of how he shows up. We all need to have our fuckery and flair. I don't know. I love it so much.
One of the things that you reminded me of that he spoke about is sometimes we have people in our lives who are like, stop fucking around, right? Like, be serious.
Yep.
And what I appreciated about what he said is, like, that downtime is necessary. And, it's funny because we were talking about Dr. LaJoy earlier, and it's like, there's that connection there, right? Like, there's times when we have to embrace playing around, and laughing around, and being silly. That's important. That's just as important as being serious and getting down to business. It's not like the best business, the best flair probably comes from fuckery.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that, Mark. And what did he say? Be obnoxiously flary. I loved that. I love that because it's really a good way to say, show up 100% as you. That's how I took it.
And, we opened talking about Chris. It's gold, right? That's his line. Fuckery is his thing. And for me, it's just a really great point about when you're sharing an idea, sharing a thought. If you can find a way to put your own authentic language into it, because who's going to forget fuckery and flair?
Not a person, not a single.
Pluckery and flair.
Pluckery. Yes, we came up with a PG version for kids if he was going to go talk about that. I love that. We're like, hey, you got to have a version that if you were speaking at a school, you can't say fuckery and flair. We came up with
Like, what is this guy doing?
Pluckery is hilarious. Love it.
Love Chris. Love Chris. And speaking of love, I've got big love for Tracy Ross. I mean, when she said, when you are looking for the wrong thing, it's hard to find big love. We should be looking for big love. And one of the things that I loved about this conversation, and we've had this in a number of conversations over 9 seasons, is when we get people to talk about the stories that really inspired the idea. And I always hope that anybody who's watching takes that in, because, you know, you and I talk about storytelling so much. And it's not just because it's this gimmick thing or this fad or it's the new in thing. Like, society has been built on storytelling. And once you can start to tap into what inspired your idea, it goes back to the story. It goes back to the story, but it also goes back to, and this is what we talked about a little bit earlier as well with, you know, the whole idea of turning a statement into a question. I love when she asks, what makes big love challenging and what makes it work? Love the use of those questions to get us to think.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Mark, I love it. By the way, when I heard you say big love, it gave me tingles. It gave me tingles because even the phrase big love, just it expresses something more than just love your fellow, you know, other people. Like, it's like big love. How do you show up with big love? But to add on to what you're just saying, I wrote down that she said, you know, use big love to counteract pain and unite people. What else is going to counteract pain and unite people that maybe wouldn't necessarily be united? Like, that's powerful.
World could use a whole lot of that right now.
Yeah. Right.
A whole lot of that. Wow.
A whole lot of that.
Yeah. I was very touched by this, and she speaks so authentically about it. And, you know, it reminds me again of Dr. LaJoy and talking about how do you turn your idea into a practice, right? I wrote this down in my notes, making the practice of an idea more applicable and universal. You know, because again, I'll go back to what I said before. Even big love is an abstract idea, but how do you practice it in your everyday life? And to your point, how do you make an idea, if you can, reverberate so that it has so much impact? Because that's what I love about what you said. Big love is not just, you know, oh, I got a whole lot of love for you, hug, 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 right? It was about uniting the world, even with people that you don't always want to show some love to.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. Well, Tracy Rossi, we love you and we love your big love. You know, our next guest was Sam Diaz. He's number 8. He was our show episode number 8. Oh, I have some big love for Sam. Why do I have big love for Sam? Because I coached him last year for his TEDx Portland talk. And I will never forget our initial conversations, they went something like this: Cathey, they're asking me to talk about land use as a TEDx Portland topic or a TED topic. That's so boring. What did you say earlier, Mark? The only thing that you need to know about dirt, the only thing that you need to know about land use is what?
Dirt and Mona Lisa.
Dirt and Mona Lisa, right? Which is a callback to something he did in the talk. But I love that we framed a lot of this conversation, not so much around his topic that he actually talked about, but really, how do you take a topic and how do you take a boring topic and make it unboring? How do you make it cool? How do you make it engaging? How do you make it interactive? And I just want to give you all behind the scenes. And I think I talked about it a little bit on the show. Sam felt a little uncomfortable on making it about him at all. And I was like, this whole thing doesn't have to be about you, but why are you the best person to be talking about this idea? Not just because you're the CEO of 1,000 Friends of Oregon and you work on land use things. There's a lot of people that are working on land use issues. You're not the only one. So what's your specific story? Going back to what you said, Mark, stories make the world go round. His story was what made the entire TED Talk phenomenal. Like, it was about how his mom taught him the lesson of when he's in a space where it seems like there's people in that space that might not always agree, find common ground, find it first, and find it fast. That became the whole idea around it. So anyway, just really fun to have that conversation, especially after working with Sam, and to see how much he transformed from going, ugh, I don't know how we're going to frame this, to then confidently stepping on the stage and just, he did one of the best callback to audiences ever that I've coached in a TED Talk. He had a slide and he had everybody say, when I say something, you're going to say, thank you, Oregon. Oregon is giving us this thing. Our land use, policies have given us this beautiful thing in Oregon. There's 3,500 plus people saying, thank you, Oregon, appreciating it. Oh, so good. So good.
That is awesome. I so appreciate this conversation because I think there's a lot of people who feel I don't have anything interesting to talk about. Or what I have to talk about, I think is kind of boring. I think a lot of people, I was actually reading about that the other day in terms of like why people are so uncomfortable with speaking. And one of it's around this fear of not being interesting, right? Which I always say really translates into this desire to enjoy what you're talking about. And you got him to enjoy and to find the joy in what he was talking about, and let that be a lesson to everybody. I forget how you always say it, Cathey, but the way I summarize it is there's no such thing as a boring or bad idea. You just have to find the angle.
Yeah, I always say, well, I say it two ways now because of Speaker Skills Academy, but I always say there's no such thing as a boring topic, only boring speakers. That's been my line for a long time. But now recently I've been also saying there's no such thing as a bad idea, only bad ways to present it. And I love that because it's not a bad idea to talk about land use as a TED Talk, even though most of the world isn't interested in it. It's a bad way to do it in certain ways. It's a bad idea to do it in certain ways.
Yeah. And of course, my Marc Williams brain is like, there's no such thing as a bad idea. You just haven't found the good way to say it yet.
Yeah. Ooh, Mark, I love that. That's even another variation. I love that, right? Which just even think about this too, because I think you said this in the show, didn't you? I think this came from you. I just remember it was said, add more oxygen to your dirt.
Yeah.
Because there was the two things that he talked about was the dirt and the Mona Lisa. And
yes. How do you put more oxygen in dirt?
Yeah, how do you get more oxygen in your dirt? So good. It was awesome.
That was awesome. Great way to advertise and promote an idea, which brings us to Rebecca Armstrong.
Yep.
Queen of advertising, Although she has to share the crown with you, you are the queen of marketing, among the queen of concepts and the queen of games. You got a lot, you wearing a lot of crowns here, right? Rebecca, I love this line which says advertising shouldn't interrupt in a gross way.
Mm.
Real is beautiful.
Ooh.
And a part of being beautiful is not being perfect.
Mm.
And it's okay to highlight not only what's good, but to own what's not so good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's great.
It's
It's
good.
great. I love that. Um, I love one of the quotes she said too, was that everything is not for everyone. And I think when we try to make things perfect, especially in advertising, we're trying to make it for everyone, you know?
You know, I think that applies to so many things, which is why I appreciate what Rebecca was saying. Because the gold, thank you, Chris, for that word. The gold and such a great idea is that this is not just about advertising, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know about you, Cathey, but I have found that sometimes people want to come up with something that reaches everybody, that makes everybody laugh, or makes everybody cry, or makes everybody think, or makes everybody in the world change. And it always reminds me of a very important lesson that sometimes, what you're saying or what you're doing is not for everyone,
Yeah.
but it's for someone.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it for that someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. Just thinking about that concept makes us feel like, her agency North, based out of Portland, Oregon, they came up with that. That was this
Mhm.
reel is beautiful. They came up with it, last year as their kind of mantra for this year. They really wanted that to be their thing. And they want to do work that's real and beautiful. And that's what they want to highlight. And that's the thing. It's like everything isn't for everybody. And so, yeah, I love that, Mark. I love that observation. It's so good.
Yeah.
So good. So
Wow.
good. Well,
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 well, well.
well. So now this is the second time in history that we've done this, but and there's only two of us. So there's only going to be two times in history that we do this. So
That's
we've
right.
now both had our spouses on our shows. They've both been closers. They've both crushed it. They both blew our minds. And so, season 9, episode 10, season closer is my beautiful, handsome, amazing, awesome, loving, empathetic, uh, fun, witty, uh, fabulous, phenomenal husband, Mr. Jonathan Hoole.
Wait, hold on. Now that's love. You didn't say John, you said Jonathan. That's real love when you pull out the whole name.
I know I should say his entire name, like, right? It used to be the opposite. My mom, when she was very angry at me, would say Catherine. And if she said my middle name too, Catherine Renee, and if she said my first, middle, and last, I was done. Like, she was so mad.
Yes.
So mad. No, but it's all love. You're right. I said it. I love it. You know, one thing that I'm super proud of, Mark, and I love how when you released, when we released John's episode and you put it up on your socials, I love that. I loved what you wrote. You said, I know you love John, but I love John too. And so, I know my heart was like, ooh. Um, one thing that I'm most proud of with John is that he struggled a lot when he was young. And even as his wife and being in a relationship with him for so many years, I am just still starting to find out just how bad life was for him when he was younger, not by his parents. He had this beautiful, like, his parents stayed together. He stuttered, Mark,
Mm.
and he talked about it just a little bit, but it caused him so many
Mm.
problems and insecurities. It caused him to drink in excess, and then and then years later he would have to face this, face himself and say, I have to solve my problems in a different way. And I will tell you, for anybody out there listening, watching, anybody that has ever had an addict in their life will know there's two ways to recover. One way is that you stop doing the thing. You somehow find the strength, you find the power in the people and the program and whatever it is, and you stop doing it. The other way is that you change everything. You change how you change the way you look at the things that bothered you, that made you do that. John did the work, and we saw it. It's so evidence. The evidence is clear. This man is on our show dropping thought bombs on us, Mark. Concepts. You thought I was the concept queen. We're in a bookstore one day, and this dude looks at a book and he goes, everybody should have an anniversary. And I was like, what? And I knew what it meant immediately. I was like an anniversary for yourself, an anniversary. And I was like, wow. Then he has this concept about giving yourself a million breaks. Think about that one for a minute. We're hard on ourselves. You know, he's had to look at the little Jonathan and say, I give you grace. I give you a break, you know? So anyway, that's all I could pour out my love for him all day.
What's sitting in my heart right now is, and I feel like I heard this so much when I was growing up. You know, you blurt out somebody's name who might not even be in the room, and then you see them laying, you're like, your ears must have been ringing because I've been talking about you. John's ears have been ringing for quite some time because in so many circles, I've been telling people about the anniversary. I think so many people need to hear about the anniversary. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day who said, like, she had jumped on a call with a coach, and it was one of those days where it was like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and no wiggle time. Because, you know, in this virtual world, we'll plan a meeting from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then the next meeting starts at 2 o'clock or 1:59, right?
Yeah.
And she barely had enough time to like run and freshen up or whatever. And the coach was like, chill out, stop, turn the camera off, and go take care of your business. And when you come back, chill out a little bit more. And she said he asked her this question, like, when do you put yourself first? And sometimes that's so hard for so many people. And that's why I appreciate this whole concept of taking a million breaks and celebrating your anniversary. And I keep saying I got to pick a date for my anniversary. I think the one mistake I had made, Cathey, is I was so inspired and pumped up and fired up that I was like, all right, tomorrow.
Right. And then you're like, wait a minute. Okay, Mark. Okay, we're going to play a game right now. You never thought we were going to play a game on the wrap-up episode, right? I want you to pick up your phone. Okay. Look at mine, has the speaker skills. All right. Got your phone. Okay. Let's both do an anniversary. Let's put it on the calendar. Now, remember, this is an entire day. So it probably should be a Saturday or a Sunday. It's an entire day where you spend for yourself. You get to do the things that you like to do. If you want to take yourself out for ice cream, you take yourself out for ice cream. If you want to go to a basketball game, you go to a basketball game. You get to do whatever you want, but it's a day all for yourself. So I'm going to put another one on. I have an idea for a date. Oh yeah, I think it'll work out perfect. Let me see.
I'm dancing to music in my head.
Okay. All right, I got mine.
Tony called Anniversary. But I'm like,
yeah.
you know what today is? It's your anniversary.
All right, I got mine.
I got mine.
I'm going to do it on a Monday because I get, I have the liberty of being able to like take off, I do a lot of family stuff like you do. So I'm going to do it on October 7th. I'm putting it in here right now.
Okay.
Cathey's in.
I've just put in Sunday, September 22nd. Boom, save.
Verse 3. I'm saving mine right now.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. I have to spell it right. There we go. Okay. My thing is like wanting to. Okay, there we go. Boom, scheduled.
Boom, schedule.
Awesome.
And that's how we scheduled 10 episodes in the 9th season before the 10th season begins. This continues to be an awesome journey with my sister from another mister, from my sister from the other side of the world. Yeah, I know Portland's on the other side of the world, but when you live in Brooklyn, Portland is on the other side of the world.
Everything is. Chicago's the other side of the world. Yeah.
No,
Marc, thank you for this journey. To anybody watching us, we have a lot of loyal fans that watch us and talk about our episodes, and thank you for being on this journey. Marc and I never really intended this was a happy accident. It was something to do during the pandemic. But it also, I think Marc and I should tell you that it also led to something really beautiful for Marc and I's friendship. We've been friends for over 10 years, and it led us to start a community, Speaker Skills Academy. Yeah, right. And I don't know if all the things that we had been through in the past, Marc, I don't know if we wouldn't have done this thing it wouldn't have got us to the next thing. All these idea conversations that we've had, all the times when we were talking about these things, all the journeys you've been on. You're about to compete at the World Champion of Public Speaking again in Anaheim, California, another place on the other side of the world for you. But I love you, Marc, so much. You're definitely my brother from another mother. Your family is my family.
Same here.
Dylan and I are birthday buddies, the whole thing. So I love you so much. I'm grateful for all the awesome people we've had on. We're already, scheduling stuff for season 10, so be on the lookout. But, I have to say, every single one of these episodes, including today, it went down. And it will go down next time. And I just hope that y'all are tuned in when we get together once more for another episode and another season of It's About to Go Down.